Live and streaming. Okay, great. All right, we'll call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. It is September 5th. Welcome back from a long weekend, everybody. Can we do the roll call first, Bill?
Sure. Foreman?
Present.
Canero?
Here.
Jackson?
Here.
Bocos?
Here.
All present?
Okay, great. First item of business is the minutes of the August 15th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting. Does anyone have any corrections? Hearing none, the minutes as circulated are approved. Next is the audit of the bills to be paid. Bill, do you have any updates for us?
No updates or additions tonight.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the audit?
I'll make a motion to approve the audit.
I'll second.
Thank you. I just had one question, Bill, and that is thinking about things like concessions, well, basically anything. If it is not on the credit card report, that is an indication that the vendor perhaps charges extra for using credit card purchases, because I know we get points.
Yes, we are trying to use the credit card where we can, so we can get points for the week. A lot of vendors do have a charge or they just outright not accept credit cards.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Bill? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the audit of the bills to be paid signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Moving on to agreements and contracts, we have 4. The first one is the contract for municipal court prosecution services with Kleminski Law Office for 2024 through 2026.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract for municipal court prosecution services.
Mormon will second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I just have a question. Do we know about how many cases per month?
You know, it kind of averages depending on what's going on in town, but typically it's somewhere between 5 and 10.
Any other questions?
Is that trials or tickets?
Not trials, no. Like where there's active involvement from Kaminsky's office and stuff.
Okay.
The questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the contract for municipal court prosecution services with Kleminski Law Office for 2024 through 2026 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Next is the recreation facility use agreement with Middleton Cross Plains School District.
This is Wilkes. I move approval of the facility use agreement.
Mormon seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I
would, go ahead, Kendra.
Okay, I just had a couple questions. Other than the cost for the youth program, there's no other numbers in the agreement. Do they charge you just for custodial services ad hoc or?
For example,
Can you shut it on?
John, we good? Okay. So there are no charges for use of their facilities other than kind of something that would be outside their typical service. An example was when we used their the PAC Performing Arts facility, and it was outside the normal hours that they have staffed. They had to bring staff in, so we pay that cost. The staff that covered the Saturday day.
Okay, so like for the weekend volleyball and basketball and stuff, that's not considered outside the scope. That's still within.
Yeah, because
Okay.
whenever we're planning programming, we try to stay within custodial hours typically, so we don't see a charge that would be occurred for any programming. But that was an example kind of outside with the Middleton Youth Theater program.
Gotcha. Cool.
And this is a 5-year agreement,
5-year agreement. Yep.
and we've had it for a long time. Do you know, are there any changes from the agreement in the previous, the previous version?
Yes, we tried to, I worked with Gabrielle heavily, our youth center director, to clean up the youth center language. There was a lot of outdated practice that we weren't currently doing. So we cleaned up a lot of language where we weren't using some of those facilities. Are parts of the facility that they had noted in the agreement. So just cleaning up to what we currently are doing or will be doing in the next 5 years, but nothing of major change.
Okay, and then I noted that the funding from the district for the youth center is $18,500 per year payable in January. When was the last time that was updated, and have there been discussions about adjusting that over time for inflation?
Yeah, so we had just looked through budget with Gabrielle, our youth center director, just to look over the next handful of years. And we did specifically discuss this. We did not use all the allocated funds in previous years with COVID, and then just with staffing. So if we're not are hitting that number, I didn't feel a need to increase it until we'd come to a point where we need to reevaluate our budget for the year. And at that time, I would see if we needed to adjust this outside or inside the 5 year, we could take a look at that. But I think based off of the last handful of years or 4 years, I think we took a look at, we have exceeded that $18,000.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Kylie? Great. Thanks, Kylie. Hearing no questions, all those in favor of approving the recreation facility use agreement with Middleton Cross Plains School District signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, the ayes have it. Moving on to number 3, agreement with MSA Professional Services, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $80,978.75 for engineering, design, and bidding services for Lake Street and Dewey Court reconstruction. This comes to us from Public Works Committee.
I move approval on behalf of Public Works.
Thank you. I will second that.
Oh, that'll be so much better.
And Sean preemptively takes this podium.
Because I did want to just introduce that the recommendation from Public Works Committee included a recommendation for a future budget amendment to cover this cost. So to transfer $65,000 from the Franklin Avenue design project into this design project. That would have to be at a future agenda with a resolution for that budget amendment, but this should include that as a contingency.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to note that we did have 2 separate motions at the Public Works Committee meeting. If we were to move that we do a budget transfer of $65,000, basically reiterate the motion that passed in the Public Works Committee. If we did that tonight, do we have to come back to it in the future?
I think it needs a resolution
Technically,
to
it needs a
amend the
resolution.
budget, right? But if we just acknowledge that the intention, that's the recommendation from finance to the council, and the council endorses that, we'll get that resolution back before the council at a future agenda and then sign this contract.
Okay, so let's revise that motion. I'm looking for the page. I'm going to make a new motion if that's okay. Just want to make sure this has, okay, here it is. So I move that we recommend that council approve the agreement with MSA Professional Services, Inc. for design and bidding services for the Lake Street and Dewey Court reconstruction at a cost not to exceed $80,978.75, contingent upon city attorney satisfaction of the pending agreement form and contingent upon the Finance Committee and Common Council approving a budget transfer to allocate sufficient funds for the project design and bidding. And that's on page 15 of our packet, if anybody wants to see.
Ms. Wilkes, I'll second.
Any discussion?
Can you just refresh my memory about, I think I was actually out of town when the whole park discussion went down. So the street is happening before the park, correct? Construction wise? Are they happening at the same time?
When you say park, do you mean the shoreline
Yes,
of Lake
I-
Street?
Yeah.
Okay. So the hope is that this design will give us enough guidance and buy-in that we can build it at the same time.
Okay.
But if we can't reach consensus on that or resolution of what exactly to include, I think we could still get the grading done and sort of lay out a palette for future improvements.
Okay.
Even if we can't figure out what those future improvements are.
Okay.
I know that's been a topic of much interest and various viewpoints.
Thanks, Sean. All right, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of, I'm just going to abbreviate my motion. The motion to recommend that council approve the agreement with MSA Professional Services for design and bidding services for Dewey Court and Lake Street reconstruction at a cost not to exceed $80,978.75, contingent upon city attorney approval and contingent upon finance and common council approving a budget transfer. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, ayes have it. Number 4 is the agreement with Baker Tilly for a 2-year extension of the contract for audit services for fiscal year 2023 and 2024. And I understand we have a new item. The addendum was circulated earlier today.
Yeah, I'll bring a copy of the addendum up.
Okay, and in the meantime, if somebody would like
Basically
to,
takes the information that was in the pricing proposal and the memo and puts that into a.
if someone would like to move approval.
I will move approval for the agreement. Baker Tilly.
Thank you.
Here it comes.
Lorman will second.
Thank you. Okay. So Bill, do you want to give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, I can give some background. So the city had gone out and done a full request for proposal process to look at auditing firms. We had 5 respondents. Baker Tilly was chosen with an initial contract term for 3 years. That contract language also included 2 2-year extensions. The first 2-year extension period is now completed. There's 1 additional 2-year extension period remaining. I contacted Baker Tilly and asked for a pricing proposal for the next 2 years, which would be for the audits of 2023 and 2024. Those will actually be conducted primarily in the spring of the following year or winter, spring of the following year. They provided their pricing proposal. It did have larger increases in there. The initial proposal that we received had a 10% increase in the base auditing fee in the first year, 5% in the second year. There was also an increase in the state report, Public Service Commission report, and a new item for the implementation of our next new accounting standard coming down the line, which is GASB 96. We obtained information on pricing and increases that some of our peer communities in Sun Prairie and Fitchburg are paying. Both of them use Baker Tilly. Went back and negotiated with Baker Tilly. We were able to get that first year amount down to a 6% increase, which is more in line with what we're seeing for inflation. And in looking at those other communities, Sun Prairie, larger community in terms of population, they're a little bit higher than us in audit fees. Fitchburg is a little bit lower, but we're all in about the same ballpark. So our recommendation would be to approve the extension for the next 2 years based on the revised pricing. We've had very good experience with Baker Tilly. They're definitely recognized as a leader in Wisconsin and in this area. So we're recommending that we would approve the extension for the 2 years, and then we may want to consider going through a full RFP process at the end of this 2-year extension period and just taking a look at options and pricing at that point.
Thanks for that, Bill. Just making a note. Okay, any questions for Bill? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agreement with Baker Tilly for a 2-year extension of the contract for audit services for fiscal year 2023 and 2024, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The last item on our agenda is to award the bid to Bachman Construction Company, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $59,550 for senior center glass block repairs.
This is Wilkes. I'll move approval of to award the bid.
Thank you.
Laura Myrtle, second.
Thanks. Okay, discussion.
Seems like a lot of class, which it is. right?
Sean, will you please go to the podium?
And I don't have the quantities. This was really put together by our building inspector, Jim Scholander, but I know a lot of it is cutting out glass block and trying to match and put in new glass block, not all of which is easy to access. So he wasn't able to be here tonight, but he gave me a briefing. Obviously, this was the only bid, and he thought the price was reasonable to move forward because the risk of damage without moving forward seemed high without hope of getting better pricing later.
This isn't where they've had the problems with the leaking, is it?
That I don't know. That's a good question, and I don't know that. I know some of them are flat out broken,
Oh, okay.
which is
There
its own
was
problem.
Damage, I think going back to the storms that the city had in 2018, I think there has been some leaking there. I did want to note Tammy Derrickson is on Zoom, so she would have more information if we'd like to.
Tammy?
Tammy?
Yes, this is on the main level of the senior center, back where the bathrooms are located. And it is flood damage from 2018. Several of those glass blocks are cracked. And there's also wall damage where the water actually ran down the inside of the walls there. It does occasionally leak in that corner. But I think the other area you're referring to is out in the main area. We do have some leakage out there where there is glass block above that area as well. But this particularly refers to that 2018 damage to the building.
So is replacing glass block with glass block the best solution? Is it the only solution? Was it are we going to be looking at more broken issues in the future? I mean, I know the building itself is not in the best of shape, but.
Tammy may have an impression.
I don't know what the other options were that Jim might have explored.
Okay.
It is not a large quantity of glass block along that back wall. There is a fair amount of drywall as well. It's mainly located in a corner section of that back wall of the main level.
And this is for the repairing the drywall as well.
That I don't know either.
I
I
don't
thought it
think
was just
so.
glass.
Yes.
Oh, it's
Yes.
just the glass
I was
block.
going to ask, because it specifically references glass
Yeah.
block.
Yeah, my understanding was it's just that. And I
Yeah,
think to
masonry
your-
work does not usually include.
right. I think to your earlier question, that it really becomes, if you want to replace it, what do you want to replace it with? Because it's replacing
Right.
whole sections at that
Right.
point and not individual blocks.
This is an exterior, so this is the lighting that comes into the building.
That's part of it, and it's an architectural look.
Right, that's what I mean. It's
Yeah.
kind of the
Too.
whole. Otherwise, you end up replacing glass block with bricks.
Or ephes or something. But yeah, like whole sections would have to go.
And Sean, when it says in the memo that only one plan set was distributed, that just means that only one company bid. Okay.
Was interested, right? Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there has been difficulty in getting a contractor interested in bidding on this work, and that's part of why the delay of now in 2023 repairing damage from 5 years ago at this point.
All right. Any other questions for Tammy or for Sean?
So it sounds like we're basically stuck with what we have, working within the limits of an architectural or design of the building, restore it. Essentially, this is restoration work to maintain an original look and facade.
That's a good way to put it.
Fair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Tammy, is there a plan to repair the wall damage?
This I do not know, but Jim was aware of that. I mean, he came over and we did talk about that. So I'm not sure if he actually discussed that with this particular company or not.
Sure. And I'm not asking about this specific project. I'm assuming this is all glass, but I'm just wondering, once that's done, if there has been damage done to the drywall.
Yeah.
What's the plan to fix that?
Yeah, I think that needs to be looked at because the other part of it is all of that was obviously pretty wet and saturated. So I think at some point we would want to make sure there's not mold behind there. There is no smell in that area, but I don't know what's actually behind that drywall. It does project a little bit out from the glass block. There's a ledge there. So obviously water went down behind that during the storm.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Dave?
Sean, you're comfortable with all of this in general?
Yeah, from what Jim briefed me on, yes, I would say his thought is this is our best option, and trying to, decline this bid and rebid it isn't going to get us anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
No, I wasn't really so much thinking in terms of rebidding, but a longer term solution just to make sure if it's fixed, it's getting what we need out of it.
right. Yeah. And I don't know that there's any guarantee on anything like that, that can glass break again in the future.
Yeah,
It
It's
could.
it's inherent in its
um,
design.
Although EFS has its problems too, and
Yeah.
different looks can have, I think this is the best thing for moving forward now. And if we keep running into problems, well, maybe we'll need to rethink the whole design.
Thank you.
Alder Jackson, did you have a question?
And that's what was my concern, what Tammy mentioned about the mold or anything. What's the extent of damage? And if we go in, what are we looking at behind this? Are we going to come back and rebid, or is something else going to be added to it? Is this just the only option?
If we found mold in the drywall, that would be a separate project that we'd come back with
Okay.
with a plan on. So this would just be for the glass block only.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the award of bid to Bachman Construction Company, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $59,550 for senior center glass block repairs, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it, and we have reached the end of our agenda, so we stand adjourned.